have such sights to show you.
We're Poppin the Scary Horror Podcast here. I'm your host, Coale, and with me, as always, I have my good friend and co-host, Aaron. Aaron, konnichiwa!
Hey, konnichiwa,
Yeah.
bitches.
Man, you did it even better than I did. I can't even top that, dude. I don't know. Yep, just wanted to do a Japanese intro, even though we're watching an American adaptation of a Japanese film, which is The Grudge. And yeah, so Aaron, do you remember anything about The Grudge growing up? Because I know it was released in 2004 and everything, so roughly we're like, late elementary around there, or at least I was and everything. Do you remember anything about it?
Oh, yeah. I would have been like 10 when that came out. All I remember now is, because I never watched the movie, but I remember there's one of them has a girl with black hair and like a white face. One of them has a boy with black hair and a white face. I don't know, but I remember Scary Movie making fun of that, and that's about the extent of my Grudge knowledge.
Yeah, that's kind of basically the same thing, which it's kind of funny because The Ring by Gore Verbinski that we watched was released in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So this one releases 4 years later. No doubtedly because of how successful The Ring was here in America. And even like people, like we mentioned before, do regard the American remake to a somewhat high regard. They may still love the Japanese original film, but they still, they still respect what Gore Verbinski did adapting it and everything. The Grudge, it was always one of those films that I heard a lot about, whenever it released, and especially watching horror films and everything, because I think the other thing that stuck out for me is the fact that the film is PG-13 and everything. So I think that's the other thing that, again, they're trying to just make it entry-level horror, but I just never got around to watching it despite everything, because by the time, I was really like, okay, I'm not quite scared to watch horror films, and I could go out and watch stuff. It just wasn't really on my radar ever, and it's one of those films where over the years since its initial release in theaters, I've heard less and less and less about it and everything. I do know that Dave, Dr. Schockbecker, really likes the first Ju-on. I believe so anyways. That's the Japanese original film and everything. I don't know how he feels about the American adaptation and everything, and I really don't have anything else, but I always remembered the cover. That was always one of the biggest things, because it was like a pale face with like an eye and stringy hair, essentially, which did always make it confusing, since The Ring also has the main girl Zamara and stuff with all the hair in her face and everything.
Yeah, I couldn't really tell the difference between those two movies until I saw The Ring on this podcast.
And we'll have to see how much of a difference there is whenever we watch the American remake of The Grudge. So I don't think I have any other history context for this episode of Prior Experience, so we're just gonna dive in and see how they doing.
Woo! Konnichiwa. Watashi wa Karen.
And we are back from watching The Grudge. And how was it seeing The Grudge?
Yeah, Buffy did a really bad job slaying those vampires.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I never watched Buffy,
Me
so
neither.
I did see her in Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
she gets butt and everything, so that's cool.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, not so much butt kicking. Just it's funny that I'm just having a revelation here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. Just she was in Scooby-Doo. She looked like she was in Scooby-Doo in this movie.
Yeah, maybe that's why. Because she did have some Daphne-ass fits. And I was like, she looks like a cartoon character this whole time. when she had that big turtle that, yeah, you asked me, and I was like, yeah, she looks like fucking Scooby-Doo character. It's probably just because she is in Scooby-Doo.
Oh, they just saw this and they were just like, Leo pointing me, you know, there, Scooby-Doo. Oh, man.
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yes, but no, yeah, definitely not killing vampires this time around and not doing a good job of it either.
And no Zombie Island, and no nothing. She's just, yeah, House of Horrors.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a movie. It was, it had some good qualities. It had some cheesy qualities. It was a movie. Yeah.
Yeah. It's bad because my friend Randy, I was talking to him a bit about like movies I had seen lately or whatever. I told him like, up next on the podcast, Aaron and I we're watching The Grudge, and he's like, oh, I hated that movie. Oh, to be fair, he's like, I didn't like it. that was his word and everything, and I was like, all right, I'm in for a rough time, I'm guessing.
I think it was that bad. We were laughing at a lot of things.
No, it definitely had unintentional, laughable scenes and everything, which is more than what I can say about other films we have seen on this podcast.
True.
So no, there's definitely a lot of unintentional laughs, but yeah, it's very goofy. It's very, very goofy.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of that is just because a lot of the effects and stuff are like trying to tap into that uncanny valley effect, and sometimes it's a little more funny than it is scary. Sometimes it's scary and funny both. And there are a couple times where I thought it was just scary, but a lot of times it's really goofy. I don't know. And it's also just got that distinctly early 2000s vibe that sort of dates it. But, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, it's one of those things that watching it, it's one of those, it's weird, because, like, I feel like enough time has passed that there is a certain charm with mid-2000s horror films.
Yeah.
The same way that, the 80s has, like, that charm for the horror films and everything. I feel like, especially for me, because, like, mid-2000s was a lot of films I remember hearing growing up, and so some of them were, like, the first ones I investigated. Especially the PG-13 movies, because my parents didn't let me watch rated R films while I was younger and everything, so they let me watch PG-13 films, which I'm surprised I never got around to watching The Ring and The Grudge, but maybe it was just because I was always freaked out by more supernatural stuff, as opposed to just slashy sort of thing. But it has a lot of that charm. It has a good amount of charm to it, I would say. It feels like a mid-2000s horror film and everything. It's like, in all honesty, it's like if I was craving for something of that generation, I feel like it would be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Problem is, I'd be a dirty freaking liar if I said that this was a critically a good film. There's a lot of stuff that's definitely
interesting choices,
which is weird because the director Takashi Shimizu, do you know what other film he directed?
No.
Ju-on. It's the original director of the original Japanese
and he just
film.
made it American.
Yes, he worked with writer Steven Susko or Susko there, and as we saw in the basically headlining credits, Sam Raimi helped produce this film because he was one of the ones that was very much pushing for this film to be made because he loved the Japanese one so far. So it's weird that it's the same director and everything. Yeah. And in all honesty, I would be kind of afraid of what this film would have become if it was handled by another director and everything. I mean, granted, Gore Verbinski, I felt like did a very decent job making The Ring. Granted, I still need to watch Ringu. But it is an interesting case where it's the same director just directing it for an American audience, because Ju-on in Japan was big cultural phenomenon hit and everything, especially because the whole idea is based on I'm trying to think, Japanese lore, Onryo, they're sort of like the vengeful spirit and everything. So I think that rings true with, Japan and everything, and they can latch onto it. But I felt like they had a hard time translating it to America, because whenever they came into like the reason as to what the Grudge is and everything else like that, it just never really ever translated super well to where we knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah, so they tried to kind of explain it with that opening title text or whatever. And it says something about, like, when the curse is laid upon this place after fury or whatever. Like, they just kind of, like, give you some vague shit before you know what the movie's even about. And then they go through, and then later in the film they describe, something horrible happened to you. And, like, I get it, but yeah, no, a lot of the ways that they tell the story, there's a lot of, like, time jumping. It's like a non-linear sort of storytelling method. Makes it all like that. I can tell they structured it that way to, like, I'm going to explain some things in the moment that I want to explain them to you, but it just ends up being a little jarring and messy. Yeah.
And I don't know. Like I said, we'll probably talk more about details later, more and more as we talk more about the story and everything. But I guess I will do my best to describe the plot of The Grudge. So, The Grudge focuses mostly on a couple, Karen and Doug, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar and Jason Behr, who have moved to Japan because I guess she's like an international student there.
They're both students.
Okay, they're both students. Okay, glad you knew. I knew Karen was at the very least because literally the police officer asked her. They basically moved to Japan, and a job opportunity opens up for Karen to take care of this woman who I believe they confirm she's like has dementia or something like that. And basically be like a caretaker, like housekeeper sort of thing. But as she's there, she realizes that the house that she is living in ain't normal. In fact, it's a little haunted, fam.
Just a smidge.
And after a lot of weird events, we then start to get an interwoven sort of narrative where we're hopping from the past to the present constantly, or we're jumping to different points in a timeline. Which was very weird and everything. I would still argue, obviously, Karen and Doug are the main characters, but other characters do pop up whenever it comes to essentially playing a part in this story, trying to talk about what I assume is the Grudge, like the word for Juon, translating it. I'm going to be honest, the story threw me off with how much they hopped from point A to point B. And if you always hate those like 20 years later or whatever subtitles there, don't worry, they don't give you a scope of time. It's literally like, how long have they begun? A day, right? Something like that. So you literally almost have to like create your own timeline. Like it's like one of those you ever see like those edits they do of like Kill Bill or something like that, where like they re-edit it in order or something like that because like it's so out of order. It's like you almost have to do that in order to keep straight exactly what the storyline is and everything. And I don't mind. I don't mind whenever a story hops around the timeline and everything. It's one of those things that it takes me a while to get adjusted. Like, okay, now we're here. Okay, now we're here, and now we're here.
Because there's a lot of characters they bounce between, and then like characters you will have already seen die, and then just with no warning show you them alive again, and then you're like, oh, I'm in a flashback. Okay, like it's an interesting way to do it. There's not like, I don't know, you can have movies that have these non-linear storytelling ways, and like the character will have a flashback and it's like an important thing for the character or whatever, or the whole movie's structured around it, like Memento or whatever, because the guy loses a short-term memory, so they tell the movie backwards. It's like there's cool things you could do with that, but yeah, I feel like this one even though like you kind of get what's happening there, because there's no transition and there's no like narrative reason for there to be a flashback most of the time. It's not like this character's remembering something or whatever. It's just like you, the audience, now are showing you a different story or whatever, and it just doesn't. I don't know. It's not woven together the best way it could be, I think.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely an artistic choice to shuffle it around as is and everything. And I don't feel like it's the worst. Like, it's not like one of those things where I'm like, I can't follow the story. I was still able to follow the story perfectly fine, but it is definitely a bit rough with the transitions whenever we're like, okay, now we're focusing here. Or now we're focusing here and doing stuff.
It's it's just jarring. It's not that you can't understand what's happening, like you said. It's just that from an audience perspective, to just be thrown in these different time frames for often no reason other than like, okay, now I want to tell you this piece of information from the movie or whatever. Yeah, I feel like is discombobulating.
Yes, definitely for sure. But yeah, I mean, for the sequence of events they chose to show and everything, I felt like that was fine. Yeah. The idea of the story, I think, is also perfectly fine and everything. Cursed house and everything. Yeah. And then they're trying to... I feel like it's one of those things where... I like the idea and everything about it, but the way they develop it, they don't really develop it too much besides, house is haunted as hell, essentially.
Yeah, for most of the movie, it's like, most of the movie is you as the audience member coming to understand why the house is haunted, and that's an interesting structure, but, like, it also makes you not that invested in the fact that the house is haunted, other than, like, scary things about to happen, you know what I mean? Like, you don't figure out why.
Yeah, it feels like more like a haunted house attraction almost there, like just entering in and then you pop it up and then maybe there's a loose story scattered there, but it's just mostly you trying to pick up the pieces. Not necessarily bad, but just, like towards the end, I kept waiting for like the big like, aha, so this is the explanation of everything there. And not that there's a lot of films that don't ever explain themselves. I just feel like this isn't one of those artistic, we're not going to explain, as opposed to just lacking details.
Well, I feel like it explains what happened. It's just like, you just have to buy
it's
supernatural. Yeah.
Yes, I am so sorry. Yes, I totally meant the supernatural portion. Yeah. You figure out.
It's definitely not one that's like, actually, it was this the whole time or whatever. It was like, they do kind of tell you, I mean, right from the opening title sequence, they're like, places can become cursed if horrible things happen there or whatever, and then you watch the movie and that's what it's about.
Yeah, I think what I was trying to say is that they don't establish like the rules, like
true. Yes, they don't.
Yes, for sure. Of like what is their capability and why, essentially there. I think that was more so it. They do explain kind of like why this supernatural phenomenon is here and everything. It was just more so like again, it's like where we've talked about previously on the podcast, like what's the extent of the powers, like what's this, what's that, and again,
what are the rules?
Yes, I was, oh my god, I was thinking of that song too, man. So that was like one thing, and like, because I honestly was prepared, because there is some sort of like tropey structures and everything sometimes. And one of them is sort of like the part of the movie where it's like, okay, here comes the exposition, like the big thing. And whenever it shows up, it's just like, I didn't get a lot out of that. You kind of gave like the spark notes. Did you read the chapter before presenting in the classroom today, detective? Sort of thing. But I mean, I guess he gave enough. It was just more so like, again, I was like, give me the lore.
Yeah.
Do that. But yeah, and obviously we'll talk more about details and everything. We'll talk about our good old Buffy Daphne gal, Sarah Michelle Gellar, playing Karen, and there's not a lot to Karen as a character. She is literally a blank template, ride vehicle to essentially experience what she's experiencing and everything. but she looks fantastic. She looks groovy.
She does look groovy. Yeah, it
Yeah.
really does feel like a Scooby-Doo movie because of the fucking outfit she's in. But then, like, it's like not Scooby-Doo style horror. It's like actual horror. It's like, this is what actually would happen if Daphne rolled up to this scene.
Yeah, and like I just kept making a lot of these jokes or whatever during the movie, where it's like, you know, there would be like security guards where they have like overly sized hat and everything, sort of Don Knotts looking outfit there, and it just
clunky flashlight,
and even the way they ran, it's like the Hanna-Barbera sort of like run cycle.
It's like everything except for the monsters of this film were like goofy ass people.
Yeah.
Doesn't help that first, like, the whole movie just feels like they made a good movie once and then they were like, well, now we have to make, like, white people won't watch a movie with subtitles. So we have to make a movie that's very entrenched in Japan. It's very Japanese, but we have to like give it the 4Kids treatment of like everything's a jelly donut now. Every character is white in Japan for some reason right now.
Okay, I have to put a pause. Like, I don't usually do this. I'm just horribly afraid I will forget to ask about this. No, screw it. I'm sorry, Sarah Michelle Gellar. We'll get to your character here in a bit. This is just something I need to whiz into the character thing.
Yeah.
That is one of the things that I am glad The Grudge did not do, which is place it in America like The Ring did. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, it's a very Japanese story that needs to be told in Japan. It's just the way they made it.
Well, like, here's my aspect. I think I agree with it culturally and everything fits it perfectly. I also love it because it's goofy as hell. Absolutely. Like, Aaron and I were just cackling our heads off seeing like Sarah Michelle Gellar go like, you know, konnichiwa, watashi wa Karen, you know, and it's just the funniest thing ever.
White people speaking Japanese is so funny.
It's just comedy gold.
Because none of them know Japanese because they're all like exchange students or whatever. So none of them are like good at it. They're just like, sumimasen.
Yeah. It's so good. And so I am very much grateful because I feel like if they placed this in America, this film would lose a lot of its charm and a lot of stuff. I feel like this definitely would have been worse. Whereas The Ring, I felt like adapted fine into an American setting and everything. This one, again, I think it does hone back to that it is very, very, very much a Japanese traditional sort of, you know, monster, essentially.
Yeah. But here's my beef with it, is that in Americanizing it, I feel like they scrubbed out all the things that kind of make it interesting in Japanese, and that's why we weren't really getting, like, the spirit and the look, like, I don't know, a lot of the location stuff. I feel like they should have just done one or the other. Like, this is Japanese people, and like we can find some other reason they're speaking English, I guess. I don't know.
Well, and I think really thinking about it, I feel like, you know, again, it's made by the same dude and everything, and obviously the first one is heralded as a really good film and everything. So I feel like I don't know how true it is about how much studio interference there might have been, especially because
I don't know if there was any, like, just from what I could, but there could be, but
well, like, and not only that, because they did mention that The Ring's success here in America, the American one, is another reason why they allowed this film to be made. But I didn't know how much of that is like, well, you know, they didn't do any sort of like Japanese style thing for The Ring here, so, you know, maybe like it's like almost like the Americanized way we view Japan almost. Like they were just focusing more on making it an American film as opposed to bringing out the elements that makes it strong.
I see what you're saying. It could definitely be a studio thing, because definitely in that time too, 2004 or whatever, they're like, all right, like this was before everybody listened to K-pop and watched K-dramas, and people understood that like American audiences like foreign things. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I feel like studios are probably, yeah, I can see what you're saying. Like, no, we need to make this more American.
Like, look at these horror films that are coming out.
Because this was the same time where they would, 4Kids TV was taking anime and then like, all right, we gotta Americanize the shit out of this,
Oh yeah, have you seen that classic clip from Pokemon with Brock with rice cakes?
Yeah, I referenced that earlier, the jelly donuts.
Yeah.
The jelly donut
Yes.
everything.
So, I mean, that's my only guess as to why, because that is a very good point I didn't think about. Like, if they had brought what, Japanese cinema does really well with horror and everything, I think it honestly would have elevated this film as opposed to just, half-ass PG-13 early mid-2000s jump scares.
Yeah, just trying to make it really palatable for some high school audience, that would go watch this in 2004. Obviously it worked. I mean, it was a successful film, but...
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I would be really interested to watch the Japanese version, because I feel like it's probably miles better.
I feel like, obviously, no spoilers, but I feel like we should have a comparison on this podcast with not only the Grudge against Ju-on, but the Ring and Ringu. So, potential spoilers, just stay tuned for that one, folks. Yeah. So I had to talk about it because I was afraid I was going to lose any sort of comment there. But yeah, let's go back to talking about Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah.
Not that there's a whole lot to talk about,
no,
but
she's an empty vessel of which we see things sometimes.
now let's talk about the character.
Yeah.
No. I feel horribly rude now. No, she seems super nice. Anyways.
She's like a great person.
Yeah, super.
She just wasn't given a character. They were just like, all right, she's like she has a boyfriend and she's in Japan. Great. That's all we need to do.
In all honesty, like, it's just because it's Sarah Michelle Gellar that just makes her endearing.
Yes.
Like, as a character, which is good, because if it was some actress that we didn't care about or whatever, like, they would have to act their pants off. Not that any sort of acting could have sold this. I feel like she's just kind of given an impossible task. And again, she's just more so the vehicle for the audience.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but I like seeing her. And she does a perfectly good job. And again, she's very endearing.
Yeah, I enjoy her when she's on screen. But yeah, exactly. Like you said, it's because it's Sarah Michelle Gellar, not because it's anything this movie or that her character's doing.
Yes. And her boyfriend, Doug, once again played by Jason Behr and everything, I feel like he's even left off worse with development. He is literally just, you're the boyfriend. You are meant to be an emotional tie to the main vehicle.
Right.
To make the audience feel
I
suspense.
feel he's like super unnecessary. Like after watching the whole movie, I'm like, I don't understand why.
He is quite literally just the pretty face.
Yeah.
He literally has nothing. And again, no diss on Jason Behr, mind you.
Yeah.
He does the job, and I don't see how he could have made it any better at all. It's just sort of, he's at the mercy of the script and everything. So that's unfortunate, I guess. I don't know. It's something else.
Yeah. I don't know, he gives me Dude, Where's My Car vibes.
Yes,
not really, not really with any of his dialogue, just like his look. He just looks early 2000. He looks like an Ashton Kutcher clone.
He does. He very much does. He is very much a pretty boy from the mid 2000s and everything. And I'm pretty sure his looks are the reason he got cast.
Probably.
As that, which he is very handsome and everything. He acted fine. There's just there is nothing to his character.
No,
like, it's literally...
They're all just like the most white people. The most white people you could find in 2004 is this whole cast.
Oh my god, yeah. One actor, though, that... I don't want to blame the actor himself. I'm sure it's because of the character that's written. Is the character that we see from a different part of the timeline. Matthew, played by William Mapother, who is the son of the mother they're moving to Japan.
Yeah.
This dude is unbelievable. Like, absolute biggest jackwagon I have ever seen. And I don't know how much to blame the actor. The actor almost just makes it worse with his over-the-top over the top ham acting and everything to where I'm like, this dude is unbelievable. What in God's name?
So funny. That
Yeah.
you have such a strong reaction to that character.
And it's like, it just...
It's just another white guy that's tall.
Dude, seriously, yeah. And like the thing that's just weird is like he has me back and forth to where I'm like, do I like this? Do I hate this? Do I like this? Do I hate this? It's like that. It whims back and forth and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you one thing: it's not good. It's not good. But is it enjoyably bad or just bad? Bad? It's just wavering back and forth with
cheesy.
that.
It's cheesy 2000s acting.
Oh my god, dude. Yeah, and it's just a weird thing. I can't define it, but it's so bizarre. Because again, like I said, you know, main actors, you know, like Sarah and Jason.
It's fine.
Yeah, they're fine. They're fine. He's not fine.
So funny. I thought they were all really on the same plane of just like blah.
Yeah, and again,
he's got some dumb lines where he's like, guess they'll find someone else to crunch their numbers or whatever.
Yes, the stupid cheesy lines that's just so easily written. Like, you know, it's like I imagine the original director or whatever, you know, he goes up Takashi and stuff, he's like, what's a common joke they make here in America? And then Steven's like, I gotcha. They can find someone else to crunch the numbers. You know? This dude was the most, I don't know, maybe the most frustrating one.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of moments where the character is like, yeah, I loved watching it with you because you're like, what are you doing?
It is really stupid. Every character in this movie is stupid, though. They make the worst decisions possible. Like, it's not even like in a, like, traditional horror movie sense where it's like, don't go down in the basement, but like, you don't really know what's down there yet, so I guess I don't blame you that much, even though I personally would have ran. It's like, you know what's there. Why are you going towards it? Like, what is wrong with these people? Like, you know exactly what you're walking into. Stop. Like,
oh my god. Even his IMDb profile, he looks like a memer. Like, you see that?
you just hate people with big noses. Just kind of big nose racist.
Oh my god.
It's Mr. Matthew Mapother.
I'm gonna jump to the next person. I'm afraid of how much more this will spiral out of control here. Let's talk about Clea Duvall's character,
person.
Jennifer, who is the wife of Matthew.
White
and
wife
if
to
you
white
think,
man.
yes, yes,
They're all just
yes.
aggressively white people.
They are aggressively white. It's like in Garugames. Yeah. My gosh. Yeah, they are so pasty white and everything. And this character has nothing besides like, I don't know, I'm getting bad vibes here and everything. Like,
I got lost in Japan, honey. With the language I don't speak, I feel weird here.
oh my
And he's
gosh.
like, well, I'll tell that company that someone else can crunch their numbers. Let's just stick it out here for a while. In this creepy house that I bought for my mother without asking her if she wanted it. I just instantly said, we'll buy it. Well, just instantly was like, yes, I want this house.
Dude, he was like, oh
Didn't
my god.
Look at any of the
absolutely.
Carfax on the house. I would have known that 3 years ago a horrible thing happened.
I know. With such great internet as well, mind you. The
Yes.
search engine in Japan is amazing.
Oh, yeah. No, Sarah Michelle Gellar does some research, and she just, like, types a thing into a news website, and then the next thing she needs to look at is, like, the next article down, like, search engine. Amazing in Japan.
Yeah.
This guy needs to access the internet.
She literally just typed in the name, like, Toshi
Yeah.
and everything, and it's just like, here you are. And
Or
it's
maybe, like, at some point in the house buying process, maybe it's different in Japan, but we're homeowners. I know it takes months, and you learn all kinds of things about that. You didn't think typing in that address into the internet, you'd be like,
Oh, this is the house I'm buying.
that's the closet that I'm buying. I would have wanted to know that before I just walk into a home and say, yep, we'll take it.
oh my gosh.
But I
Yeah.
don't have Japanese company accountant. Well, why do they need to bring an accountant to their Japanese headquarters anyways? Whatever English company he's working for here.
That's how you know it's fantasy.
Yeah. If they find a Japanese person to crunch numbers, they don't know English numbers, so we have to... What is the reason he's here?
They just come across like
they're just like, yes, this company, of course, is having this guy move to Japan to be an accountant.
Yeah, like they come across. I'm imagining the stupidest scenario where they're at like this company or whatever working it, and they find like basically, I don't know what to describe it, just an American number there, like 3 instead of like the kanji, and they're like, fuck!
We gotta hire an American.
Yeah, doing that, or like, kasa, doing that.
We gotta find somebody that knows no Japanese to move them here.
There's no way we can figure this out. We need an American for this one job, identifying these numbers.
For the number crunching job.
Oh my god, so stupid. And another thing that drove me bananas is like they do have like funny scene in my opinion whenever Jennifer has to go to a store, and of course she goes to a store in Japan. Everything is like in kanji essentially. They're like no English whatsoever, and then one of the things she's like looking for, she decides to poke a hole in it and just sniff it.
In the ramen and sniff the dry noodles, I guess. And she's like, I like that, and puts 3 in a cart.
Dude, and I'm just like, this is why Japan hates us.
It's so dumb. It was like the most, I mean, for being a movie that's apparently from the same Japanese director, it's, I don't know, like,
maybe he saw it once, and he's just like, I need to throw this in.
Yeah, I don't know, it's just like, I get that they're trying to use that scene to portray that this is a strange land, and that might be why she's nervous or whatever, but first off, we're not even with those characters, like, ever, like, why do we give a fuck about them mid-movie? Second, like, you didn't show any of the, like, it's not that different. The grocery stores, you could look at the vegetables, you know what I mean? Like, she's just like, what is this food? I can't even eat it. It's just, so much of this movie has undertones that I, like, don't want to call racist, but are, like, so close to me being, like, this racist-ass movie. It's just like they had to whitewash Japan so that American audiences can watch it. It's just so weird.
Oh my god, yeah, like... We need to make this more palatable for our audiences.
Meanwhile, I don't think they knew, even in 2004, Japan is like the coolest place ever to Americans. I don't think they understood that yet.
No, it wasn't until definitely the mid-2010s, I feel like, where they're like, oh, you like Japan.
Yeah, dude.
Okay.
For, like, capitalism is supposedly being, like, the thing that's supposed to drive innovation. The companies are so slow. I mean, like, it's only been in the past 10 years that they started doing pride things, because they're like, oh, gay people have money. Yeah, that's right. You just figured this out. Come on, guys.
God.
Yes, Americans love Japan. We always have. But past about the 40s. After that, we started loving Japan. Don't ask me what happened in those years.
Oh my god. All right. Yeah, there's nothing else to Jennifer. So, like, literally, we're even sidetracking to just more interesting tangents.
Yeah, none of the characters are interesting.
No, they're not, and we'll just try to do bullet round.
What's the grandma?
The grandma, she is played by Grace Zabriskie.
Yeah.
Her name's Emma.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, you wouldn't. I mean, she's not that interesting. Her name is said more than she ever has lines. So there's the character.
Yeah,
she's an old lady that is apparently has dementia, or is she just really freaked out by this house? I don't know, because she had dementia before that. I guess that's the reason they moved her to Japan.
I don't know.
Why didn't this guy just turn down this job?
I don't know.
I gotta bring my elderly sick mother to Japan to rot in a weird castle on top of it.
Oh my god, yeah, there is nothing to her. Like, she's supposed to be, like, again, the person that is literally there for Sarah Michelle Gellar to figure out the story.
Yeah, for her to have a reason to be at the house.
Yeah, because there's nothing else interesting about her. She doesn't get any lines. she, has trouble sleeping at night, and they're like, she's basically the catalyst to show that something's wrong with the house, essentially.
Yes, because she's supposed to be the initial spooky person, because people with dementia are kind of scary.
Yeah.
Until you get to the part where you realize that Asians are kind of scary. Ooh. That's the monsters of this film, is just Asian people.
My God. Oh, we are getting heated here.
That's why there's so much about this movie that I'm like, I kind of want to say it's racist, but it's not there yet.
We'll have to talk about specific points and spoilers and everything. It's pushing.
It feels like it is.
Yeah.
Maybe give it another 10 years to cook, and then I'll look back on it and be like, that was racist.
Yeah. And also there is the daughter, who is the sister to Matthew, Susan, played by Katie Strickland.
Thank you, Katie Strickland.
Yeah. She's there. She's literally there just to help add more thoughts as to how the Grudge works, essentially.
Yeah.
That's it. There is nothing to her besides being business lady.
Yeah, she is business lady, yeah.
Very much business lady. I'm sorry, Katie. I have nothing else.
Yeah, no, you weren't given anything,
I
Katie.
liked your clickety heels, but
Yeah,
I think that's more of a yeah.
Sound design of this movie is pretty good. I can't complain about sound design.
No. And then we'll jump to slightly more interesting people, I think.
Yeah.
Peter, played by Bill Pullman.
Yeah, Peter's a white guy that can I even say it? The very first scene you see in the movie?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
he just fucking kills himself in the first scene of the movie.
Yeah, that was wild. And it was like one of those things where, like, watching it or whatever, it's like, I have a feeling that there's about to be a suicide.
Yeah, so much of this movie, the beats are really predictable. You're like, this is about to happen, and then that exact thing happens. And that's the beginning of this movie. You're like, yeah, this guy's about to kill himself. And then he does, and it's supposed to be like a surprise, but it was just very obvious that it was going to happen.
Yeah, and you do get to see scenes of him because the timeline jumps back to whenever he was alive, essentially.
Yeah.
Basically telling his side of the story. So that's...
And they jump to his point of view. Yeah, it is interesting. There's a lot of people's point of view you end up seeing the movie from, which is odd.
I don't know. I feel like it was good that they did that. That's how good I find it. It's like,
yeah. I guess how I would describe it is I think the story is good, but the way that they decided to tell it, where just like, it's like they had this story and they couldn't figure out a more elegant way to tell it, so they just kind of shoved the perspective into these random points in time and random characters' points of view. I don't know. It just doesn't seem organized.
No.
Like, the plot seems organized, but none of the characters or like the flow, like none of that is organized. It's just kind of like it's like they cut it up and put it together the right way, but then didn't worry about any of the in between.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
But no, you're fine. But I feel like again he does fine, but he's literally just there for the backstory.
Yeah, I honestly think he's one of the more interesting characters, but not because they give him any character, it's just the role he plays in the story.
Yes, that's exactly it. Because like I was interested in him, but not because of him as a person, but instead what his tie was to the story.
Yeah, none of these people have anything interesting about them as a person, but rather just how they're connected to the story is the only thing you have to go on.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing about his like girlfriend, wife, I guess, Maria. I don't know if they ever said their name, but played by Rosa Blasi. Anyways, she's literally just there to help Sarah Michelle Gellar with exposition.
Yeah.
Like, it's... I don't know. Like, literally, she's just like, we need this character to help this character. It's an NPC.
Yeah, that's what most of the characters are. Yeah, they're devices.
Yeah. But one that's a fun cameo, Ted Raimi's in the film playing Alex, and he is Ted Raimi.
He is indeed.
He's just a big goofball and everything, and I just can't help but laugh every time he pops up on the scene and everying.
Yeah, he's like, oh, of course I live in Japan and work here.
I'm
Ted Raimi.
As if this film could get wide enough.
I'm here to give you guys the sense that just everyone here's white.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're a background character.
My God. I don't know. There's nothing to say, but he's just goofy. He's goofy.
He is.
But at the same point, I love to see him. Again, it's a Sarah Michelle Gellar situation.
Right, yes,
where
exactly.
I love seeing him because it's Ted Raimi.
Right, because I love the actor, not the character.
Yeah, which is like both good and bad. It's both good and bad.
Good sign for the actors. It's a bad sign for the movie.
Yes, exactly. And one other actor who, thankfully, there's maybe a little bit more to talk about is Ryu Ishibashi, who plays Nakagawa, who is
like
the
the
detective. Yes.
Yeah, he was cool.
Yeah, he
Probably
was
because
cool.
he's like the only actual Asian person that you talk, besides Yoko, who we'll
Yes,
get to. But
yeah. No, it was cool, but I will say it was funny because like the first time he shows up, it's like at night, you know, he's getting out of the police car with the flashing lights. He's not saying anything, and he looks
coat and the armband.
Yes, and he just looks like rugged, like you could tell he's put in time and stuff. And so I'm expecting this boy's
Seasoned
being
detective.
like, you know, let's see, I can't remember how to say goodnight. All I can remember is good morning, like Ohayo gozaimashita. Like something like gravelly and stuff, but he just like, you know.
I was expecting him to light up a cigarette. And
Dude,
be like,
me too. Like the
"Yada, yada
cigarette.
goes in."
Yes, exactly. I was expecting that, but instead he just has the smoothest, youngest voice. Like, you know, he's like, you know, yeah. Yeah, like, and it's not a problem or whatever. It's just he just has a voice that doesn't match his face he has going
a
on,
little bit.
where he's just like, you know, like, hi, you know, like very just light and smooth
has-
and youthful sounding.
Maybe that's just his English accent, and then when he talks in Japanese, he's like.
Yeah, like sort of like.
And then when he
the-
talks to white people, puts on his customer service voice, and he's like, "Ah, yeah,
Yeah, like
Somebody died here. So sorry.
I'm stupid. He's speaking American to us.
Exactly.
Yes, and everything. But his character was interesting, and they attempted to add a backstory to his character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, he's talking about like his previous like pals he had on the force, essentially, and how they were investigating all the stuff that's going on with the house, but then something happens. But I felt like they just were like, here's a little development. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Like, they just literally were like developing, and meh.
Gotta put this in some. Can you just say the lines?
Yeah, just say the lines, essentially. And so, because you could tell he like takes moments, like there's a lot of triggers, like somebody will mention something and he just like kind of pauses there, and then he's like, yeah, okay, let's just keep moving this
Right.
along there. And so you could tell, like, the actor especially is trying, and that the script writers did attempt.
Yeah, I mean, all that shit must be
Something.
written in where it's like,
Detective looks longingly in the corner or whatever, and he's like, this is all coming together in my mind.
but you don't. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
get that great moment of like him being like, yeah, this.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's, I don't know, like, and again, none of, besides our boy Matthew, I don't blame any of the actors for the performances they gave,
Yeah.
essentially. They were trying their best, and I just feel like, unfortunately for him, even though he is one of the more developed characters, there's still just nothing to it. Like, nothing that
Yeah.
makes him stand out, which is unfortunate, but that be how it be and everything.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the one of the only other Japanese actors, Yoko, played by Yoko Maki.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't get to see her a lot and everything, but the moment she's there, like, she's perfectly likable. You're
I
like,
like her, yeah.
yeah, I like her, and I think it's just because, again, they're good actors.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
really good actors to make you like care and connect with them and everything.
I think
And
crucially, you see her early too. There's so many characters in this film that, like, when you get to the middle of the film, you're like, I don't know who this. I don't care, you know, like.
Yes.
But like, you see her early enough that you like invested.
yeah, because it's like one of the first characters. So then you're like, you know, that's what you do. You're like
Yeah.
getting to know them and getting attached and everything else. And, you know, she honestly has little to work with, but literally, I think she like aced 100%.
Yeah.
Like, there is nothing wrong with her performance and whatever. And even there's like another moment that happens where I was like, oh, okay, holy hell, how about that, essentially.
How about that?
But yeah, so major points for Yoko for being absolute champ
Shout
and
out
everything.
to Yoko.
Shout out to Yoko.
We love Yoko.
Me too. That being said, and let's look right here. I guess the only last two characters to really talk about are sort of the, I guess you would call them antagonists of the film, like the main monsters of the film.
The monsters of this
horror
film.
The Grudge, or the Juan, or the Onryo, just
The spirit.
yes, the spirits. One of them being Toshio, played by Yuya Ozeki, and this character is like a young child actor and everything.
Little boy.
Yes, little boy and everything. In all honesty, I'm trying to see. Yeah, he was born in 96, so he would have been like 8, around there. And I feel like for a child actor, he does perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Like, zero qualms. But again, the problem is he's given like no lines.
No.
He just stares and makes noise and everything, which obviously no points against him. He did what they asked, essentially, and does a good job, and looks fine, he's good at not smiling, I will say.
True.
That boy knows no joy.
He's got to be a little spirit boy. Yeah. He's got to have weird, creepy vibes, and he does nail that.
Yeah. But I feel like even then, he's not really even the main monster. It's like sort of like the side addition to the main Onryo, as it were. Kayako, played by Takako Fuji. That is very funny that it's just one letter difference for the actor and everything. And I feel like, again, she's fine, but it's weird because you don't really see her at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, like
and
it's kind of
everything.
like like monster movie fashion, where you don't see them in full until towards the end. You just see little parts of them.
I don't know, and it's funny because you see like hints and everything else like that, and I did like some of like the teasers, I guess. Like there's one scene whenever she appears in front of the older woman and Sarah Michelle Gellar and everything, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of nifty how they did that, like this floating sort of thing there. I don't know. There's sometimes where they do good teases, and then other times where they just do absolute silly, ridiculous teases where it's just like, okay, this is just silly. And I don't know. By the end of the film, like seeing her and everything, I felt like she's fine. She's fine.
I thought she did a pretty good job of being scary.
No. I'm talking more so just about like the design, like whenever they did show it.
Yeah.
I felt like she was doing a lot. It was just sort of like, I almost felt like the camera was afraid to look at her.
Yeah, I think they were trying to not show too much, because a lot of times when you just see a monster, it's really hard to execute it in a way that's like, okay, it's scary. Like every time I'm watching an alien movie, as soon as you see the aliens, they stop being scary, or
that's true.
like
yeah,
Stranger Things. Man, I haven't watched most of the seasons, but like the first season was so good until you saw the monster, and then I'm like, So I feel like horror movies are always afraid to like really show you until the end.
Yeah, but no, I feel like the actress Takako did a very good job being creepy and everything. That's
really good.
That's not the problem. It was just more so like, they were building it, and then once you get there or whatever, I guess it's weird because I just didn't feel that scared by her, essentially. But I think it might be more so just up to that point, it's been hard to kind of be scared with how goofy it is, maybe.
I was scared because it was like, I was scared, but I was also laughing through most of it.
Yes, that's my thing.
It's so uncanny. It's like when you see like it's like scary puppet shit. It's like
yes, that is so accurate and everything else. Like I think that's just what it was. It just kind of pulled me back a little bit. It sort of, and again, like almost has. It's not quite this bad or whatever, but almost like Evil Dead vibes.
Yeah,
like,
a little
around
bit.
there.
What it feels like to me, and maybe it's just because of the setting, but it feels like, when you see like scary manga panels or something. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So much of it, like the fucking little nose goblin thing from Berserk. That's just like, it's like goofy, but also just the way that it's presented is like, it's sort of scary coded. It's like, yeah, it's kind of, she's got like a goofy face and you see it in weird moments and stuff. But just the way that it's made up and lit and everything is scary. Yeah. I would shit my pants if I saw that in real life. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no. If I saw it in real life and everything, it definitely would be terrifying. I think it's just because of the fact that I had been laughing so hard that it was hard to pull me back into horror.
And so much of it, because you're laughing at, like, white people speaking Japanese, and then... which is why I think this film's probably so much more successful when you're, like, entrenched in the setting.
I think if I had watched it whenever I was younger, kind of same thing with The Ring, I think I would have nearly had a heart attack.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I told you about how, like, fucked up just watching The Sixth Sense made me when I was, like, 12. I was like, that movie made me spooked out. So that came out when I was 10. If I had watched it, I would have been done for.
No, I would have been done for as well. Like, I'm just able to laugh at it now just because, like, I just find cheese a lot more funny, whereas as a little kid you're not used to sort of like cheesy stuff because you are just like kind of learning this stuff, so it hasn't registered. But after you've experienced so much stuff, like I said, I was just laughing. So I guess that's why kind of once they kind of reveal what she looks like at the end and everything, I wasn't super scared. Granted, they did have like a couple of scenes that I was like, man, that's kind of scary to think about. Like, as silly as it was executed, the idea is still scary. Like whenever Sarah Michelle Gellar is in the shower, like washing her hair and everything, and then there's just that one hand that like grabs her hand while she's washing it. Like, you know, it was goofy, sure, but then I imagine like if I was in the shower and I had that, I would freak out essentially. But yeah, so maybe that's the reason why, like I said, if I watch the original one, as long as it's also not, silly, which I can't imagine it being any sillier than this film
can't be more
at all.
silly. I'm sure it's a little silly though.
Yeah,
the silliness is really Japanese. I think the style of silly, not the fucking English people talking Japanese. Not that kind of silly, but even like the silliness and the effects and stuff that can come out in times is like, I don't know, it just reminds me of how weird so many fucking Japanese spirits and stuff are when you like look at the folklore. Like that one that's just like a floating head with the spinal cord on it and she flies around. Like, it's like, that's scary, but also really goofy.
Yes, I would agree. And it's like, because like the thing is like, I don't know, like, I love the design of, like, the Onryo in this film. Like, there is nothing I could improve on it there. I think, again, it's just because I've been laughing so hard that even whenever I'm approached with something scary, I'm still laughing and everything. Fair. And not to mention, anytime, because with the most iconic thing, as I remember people impersonating this whenever the film came out, because it is a fairly easy noise to mimic, but the doing that, it made me laugh because they would time it in the goofiest ways. Like, they would use it at inappropriate times, and so anytime I heard that noise, I just started laughing. Like, it almost made me associate the noise with hilarity. It's instead of being scared, you know. Like, I don't know, it's kind of interesting how like the film ended up failing to kind of scare me, because I feel like I'm going to sleep okay tonight. I feel like it, as opposed to other films sometimes where I'm like, I might stay up a little while longer. But I don't know, it's such a back and forth with this film on what it does, where I'm like, I do enjoy how absolutely ridiculous and silly it is, but it does make the art suffer a little bit, but makes it a fun camp watch. Like, again, like this is like one of the biggest films we've laughed at, I think, in the podcast and everything. And especially compared to other films that have tried to be funny and everything. This one definitely ends up being a lot more unintentionally funny. But yeah, that's the characters and everything. Trying to think of any other instances. I'll mention this before. I'll mention it again. I do like the setting. I do love Japan, but that's because I just love Japan. Period. Like I visited Japan, and I just love the culture and the architecture, the building. Like everything about it is wonderful and terrific. So seeing that just makes me nostalgic, being like, man, I want to go back already.
Yeah, but I feel like it was an easy button. They were like, Japan, great setting, and then they did nothing to like really, I don't know, make you feel like you were in Japan. They did everything to make you be around English people.
Oh my gosh, yeah, because they would do moments like where it's like, you know, they're visiting a graveyard and it's like, oh, you know, the smoke is delivering their prayers to the ancestors. So they would do stuff like that, which gotta love Doug lighting up next to a cemetery and everything. I'm like, okay, sure. Americans, you know, Americans at their finest, essentially. Before the YouTubers crashed the entirety of Japan. That or going to the supermarket. But yeah, they don't really do anything. But I do love that they do throw in like Japanese customs. Like whenever they have that real estate agent showing during the flashback, essentially, with like Matthew and the fam going in and they're like, oh, please remove your shoes off. He's like, oh, of course. And everything. Doing stuff like that, but you're right, it is a bit of an easy button that they could have implemented a lot more stuff, because again, like, I don't know, maybe Americans are just too stupid to comprehend anything that's just foreign to them, I guess, or whatever.
That's just the vibe I got from, like, just the treatment this film got. Yeah, probably from the studio end. But. Yeah,
but I did like the house and everything. I thought the house was well laid out to have a lot of stuff, but like, again, I don't know how similar the house structure is to the first one. Another interesting thing is that Ju-on was released in 2002, so this film came out 2 years later.
So it must have been right after they made that film. Then.
Yeah, like just a quick turnaround, you know, same director and everything, but I do like the way the house is laid out. It's set up for good moments, like whether it's like going by the stair banister there or going up to check out the attic or the other rooms. I do like the layout of the house. I feel like it's very well placed and very well architecturally. I like that a ton. So that was enjoyable. There was definitely a lot of just kind of good moments like that where I could appreciate the setting. And again, makes it rewatchable because again, it's part of cinema is just enjoying what you're looking at there, essentially. So I do think that is kind of a point in favor of this film, but you are right. It is. They could have gone more with it, essentially. But yeah, I definitely think this film wouldn't have as much charm as if it was just like suburban white neighborhood there.
Yeah, no, they'd have to really tap into some sort of American folklore, like, you know, this is a cabin in Massachusetts or whatever. Turns out a witch was killed there, you know?
Yeah, something like that. It's very...
Yeah, America just doesn't have that old, ancient mystery charm that makes it difficult to execute stories like that and set in America, because people have only been here since 1642, whenever Columbus sailed the ocean blue. No one was here before that. We don't recognize red people on this soil or any color people. It's only the white people, so...
I'm sweating again, Aaron.
I was making fun of our racist ass Hollywood industry.
No. You should. Blast them.
We're in 2024 now. Why haven't they made a cool ass Wendigo movie yet? I don't know. Maybe they have and it sucked, but...
That's a good question. There's
so much native folklore that you could tap into and make some absolutely scary shit, but we genocided them once, and now we're culturally genociding them.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Native shit's on the rise, which is cool, so...
No, you're good. I will say, if you are interested in something like that, see, this is my plug-in, because I always got to plug it in. Check out Until Dawn, because they do explore the Wendigo.
Okay.
So, yeah. Anyways, they are remaking the game for PS5, which I don't know how to feel. I'm pretty attached to the PS4 version, but if you got one, play it or just watch it on YouTube. I'm sure there's a full upload. Yeah. So that's a fun one. So there you go. There's one exception, but you're right, Hollywood. You're slacking.
You're slacking.
There's
just a wealth of that kind of shit that they could tap into, but
if it's not white, I'm not gonna put it on the screen.
If it's not white, it's not all right.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my god. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, and so I want to top in a little bit more into this, but you did say that the film did kind of scare you there. Like,
It was spooky. The monsters were spooky. The jump scares were spooky. I felt like it was scripted, but it was scary. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel like the jump scares were cheap at all, or do you feel like they were just like expectedly placed?
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't say cheap, because I do feel like they earned it with a lot of shit, you know, like with the hand in the back of the like, I feel like a lot of the ways but like at the same time there was a lot of stereotypical, not just in the setup but also in like, oh, she's in the mirror, oh, she dashes past the camera blurrily, you know, that kind of shit was a little like tropey, but I do feel like they were creative enough with it that it was earned.
Yeah, because that was the one thing that my friend Randy mentioned about this film, is that there was a lot of jump scares. So I was kind of prepared for it, because I hate whenever the films do a jump scare, but it's like actually nothing scary there. It's just sort of like, hey, what are you doing? You know, like pops out there.
That kind of shit.
Like, it's so stupid, the fake out there. I felt like these jump scares, while there was a lot, they were just very like, again, expectedly placed. Like, okay, that seems appropriate for...
The movie definitely gives you a clue that, like, something scary is about to happen. And it's probably going to be a jump scare, because that's what this whole movie is jump scares.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's been a lot more films to deliver cheap jump scares. That's just like, okay, this doesn't feel like well deserved. It feels very cheap, essentially. So, yeah, like I said, I think, like, again, if it wasn't so freaking funny, I could have gotten creeped out more, because there is definitely some creepy visuals they do, especially from the man, I already forgot, Kayako's spirit and everything. Definitely has a lot of spooky stuff. I will say, as much as I feel like the boy Yuya playing Toshio does a good job, I found him not really scary at all.
Well, he is kind of supposed to be like more of a bridge, I feel like, because he's in scenes where he's just not scary. You know what I mean? Like, he's like sort of leading the main characters and be like, who's this little boy that lives in this house, and not, holy fuck, that's a terrifying monster, you know what I mean? Yes. So he's a little bit like the anglerfish's light, you know what I mean, I think, but he's
yeah, that's really good. I didn't even think about that.
That's kind of the vibe I got. He's not as evil, because he also wasn't like the target of the horrible thing that happened there. He was just sort of collateral, you know what I mean?
Yes. I think that's honestly a very good observation I didn't even think about. So kudos once again, Aaron, doing that. Yeah, but yeah, if it wasn't for just sort of the goofy stuff and everything, I think the horror definitely would have been elevated, but because it was so funny, it was hard for me to get in a state of like being unnerved and everything. So I think that's sort of the unfortunate thing, but you know, at least I got joy out of it in some capacity and everything. Music wise, I feel like it's fine. I just feel like the sound design is what's better and everything.
100%. The sound design's really good. Yeah.
But it's super good, but it's also super laughable, because like you mentioned, like there's one scene where like trying to think, Matthew's wife is just sitting there, and then stuff gets spilled over, and then you see like these like wet footprints, which as you mentioned, they're so close together and everything
that they would have had to been very small steps,
sort of like Stewie walking, you know, like the doing that. Yeah, and you even hear like slapping feet sounds, which should be scary, but it just ends up being silly, or like the ringing bell or whatever, and then they reverse the sound effect. Like you would think it should be like unsettling, but it man, that was a really good impersonation there. Holy cow, I was not expecting it. But yeah, like it just made me laugh and giggle. But the sound design is good in this film, and even as overplayed as like the thing is, which I assume is in the original and everything, is effective. Like anytime you hear it, you're just like, okay, this is,
because it does sound like you're opening a crypt or some shit, you know what I mean? It's
I like that. I have even thought about that. Yeah, I'm curious like what inspired that sound, like for them to make that sound. I'll have to
definitely
look
sounds
into
like
it.
A creaking door or something, you know, but just like a human imitating it.
Yes.
It is, but I get it. It's one of those things that's like, It is scary, but also kind of goofy. It kind of
Yeah.
sounds like you're stretching one of those plastic prizes you'd get at fucking Chuck E. Cheese or whatever, and it's just a plastic tube that's all crinkled together, and then you open it, and it makes that sort of stretchy noise.
Very specific, but very accurate. Kudos. Oh my god, dude. Yeah, but I did like that and everything. Spoiler alert for the film, but people do die in this film.
Yes.
What did you think about the kills overall?
I thought it was interesting. Yeah. I'm going over all the kills in my head. Some of them were like whatever, because we already talked about one of them where the guy just kills himself in the beginning. Like that one was goofy. He did a fucking Family Guy death pose at the
Although
end.
I did realize something about what might have caused it, and I will have to mention it in spoilers.
Oh yeah, I
have a
know
feeling, yes,
maybe what you're talking about. But
but at first, like, you look at it and you're like, okay, this is just silly, because basically whenever he falls, he is no joke in the Family Guy death pose, like falling down and everything. It's so silly, and again, just the blood that's pooled there is just hardly anything. It's
all of the blood in this movie is goofy, I think.
It is, especially because of their need to touch the liquids.
There's a scene where Ted Raimi's like, what's this on the floor I'm stepping in? And he just like dunks his whole hand in there. Brings it up to his hand, rubs it on his face, starts licking his fingers. Oh, blood. He doesn't do any of that, but he does. He
might as well.
I just hate, that's like a trope in this era of horror movies too, where they have to like touch the blood to know it's blood. Like, you've seen the fucking corpse that's falling out. Like, could this be blood? It's like that guy that's like, is this a bird? But it's the butterfly. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of tropey things where people are really fucking stupid in this film.
Yes, I would agree. So, man, aside from blood touching, anything else you want to discuss before spoilers?
Oh man, now I'm ready to talk specifics.
All right, heck yeah.
Discombobulated. We got to talk about all the little fucking things.
Oh yeah, buckle in, boys and girls, for spoilers, because there's definitely a lot of stuff we're going to be hidden with bullet points there. But first, Aaron, give your rating for The Judge.
The Judge. So after
I said The Judge, I'm so stupid. I meant The Grudge. You're the judge of The Grudge.
Let me judge The Grudge now.
Yes, there we. Man, even better. Like, he should just be the host at this point. There.
Co-hosts, we share it. Great. Yeah, The Grudge, the thing that The Grudge left me wanting at the end of the movie was to go watch the original, which I don't know is bad or good.
Yes?
Well, maybe it's getting me to watch 2 films from this director, so maybe it's a brilliant ploy all along.
Oh my god, Takashi, you magnificent bastard!
He's like, well, I'll just make the English version a little bit worse so that they want to come see what it was supposed to be like. I mean, gosh, so much. I've been over the things that I don't like about this. I feel like they whitewash what parts that are just interesting. They don't give any characters actual character. They're just plot devices. Some goofy shit in this movie that kind of pulls you out of it. But I do feel like what The Grudge does well, what I feel like The Grudge is probably remembered for, is the spooky scenes, the uncanny nature, the great setting, and all of those things get thumbs up for me. The sound design, it was genuinely unnerving and spooky for me in parts. And I do kind of give them credit for trying a non-linear structure. I feel like parts were successful, but just the overall way they wove it into the story did not seem very well woven. It was just sort of like, God, the whole thing seemed railroaded to me. Every character's motivation was like, because the plot needs to move along. The reason we were transitioning to every scene was because the plot needed to move along. And it just seemed, kind of hammered together in a way that cheapened it. But overall, I think the film yeah, highs and lows. There's not a lot of like, well, everything in this movie was average, so I'm gonna give it an average score. It was like some things in this movie were really good, and some things were just. So yeah, I think it gives me in an interesting position. I'm gonna give this movie like a 5 out of 10. Yeah, I think what it does well, like if you like that paranormal ghost shit, if you like watch The Ring but you never watch The Grudge, but you just love the monster of The Ring or whatever. I mean, like yeah, watch The Grudge. It's a great. They're good monsters. The little villains in this movie. There's a lot of good things about it, but yeah, just understand going forward some of the things that you're gonna have to slog through, like funny English people in Japan dialogue, and the fact that you're not gonna care about any of the characters, just whether or not you think the actors are cool. So that's my take.
Yeah, I think that's a swell take. I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting with me because I kind of sat there being like, again, afraid of how bad this film was going to be. And I think it is safe to say, like, if people call this a bad film, I'm like, yeah, I totally agree. I think even like, obviously, the absolute, judge, jury, executioner of reviews, Rotten Tomatoes, I believe they rated The Grudge, at least critically, 41% and everything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I feel like that's fair. That's totally fair and everything. For me, I wasn't expecting to like this film as much as I did, but that's not to say like, oh man, I like The Grudge and everything else. I think definitely whenever it comes to comparing it to Gore Verbinski's The Ring, The Ring is just a more solid film and everything. I feel like it's a lot more successful what it sets up to do. This one, again, I think Aaron had it right. There's a lot of stuff that's good and a lot of stuff that's definitely not good or whatever. But I think there's a lot of merits to it. There's definitely a few things I did like. And again, it's like the same way Night of the Comet had like that 80s AF sort of vibe.
Yeah.
This has that mid-2000s AF feeling, which is honestly kind of nice. It's kind of nice if I'm feeling like, man, I really want to watch like a mid-2000s horror film. I feel like it definitely hits the notes. And again, I do like watching it there, just again for setting wise and everything else. But it does raise a question. Does this mean that I would like Ju-on much, much better, which is solely based in Japan and every aspect and everything else like that? I don't know. Probably, maybe, who knows? Stay tuned for the future, I suppose. But with that in mind, The Grudge from 2004, initially I was thinking about giving it a 4, but the more I kind of think about it, I might have to agree with like Aaron's rating and maybe 5 or even 5.5 if I'm feeling that generous. I don't know if I'm feeling that generous. It's honestly like a 5. I can find stuff I enjoy about it. It definitely has worth. I feel like, it's not a film that I'm like, man, I need to get rid of this film ASAP. This film's hot garbage. No, it was a genuine surprise. Like, if I was being more critical, I probably would rate it down to like 4.5 there. But I don't know. 5, 4.5, 5.5, that ballpark there. So I'll just stick to a 5 as well there.
5.
To write off, man, we're going to need Matthew to figure out these numbers here too.
Crunch these numbers.
Yes, crunch these numbers. So I think it is very much worth your time. Like, it's if I'm being honest, watching it with friends is optimal there. But I think even if I was watching it by myself, I would still laugh at a lot of stuff. But truth be told, I feel like Aaron did elevate the experience very much so, watching it, just hearing us laugh and everything. And again, just making the Scooby-Doo connections essentially there. It's just, it was a good time. It was a definitely good, fun time watching this film.
I can't believe I forgot she played Daphne.
I forgot as well. I forgot as well until I just made the connection at the beginning of the podcast episode.
I was just like, I'm going to make a Buffy joke. I didn't even think about Daphne.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's talk about spoilers.
Let's talk about sex, baby.
Okay.
Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about... No?
I was about to say, I was like, I don't think there's sex in this film.
No, well, right in the beginning, Sarah Michelle Gellar and that boy make out, but I'm pretty sure that was just part of his contract.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll pay you to be in this movie, but we have to, like, get in the bed and roll around together. And they're like, yeah, okay. We don't have a lot of budget. You're on.
Yeah, it's just sort of like, yep, that works.
There's no reason for it. It was definitely the PG-13est of horror movies. There was really no... I mean, I'm used to horror movies existing to show me boobies. It's a booby vehicle. But there really wasn't any in this one.
Yeah, I'm honestly glad they didn't even try.
True.
Yeah. Anyways, glad we got that big major spoiler you wanted to
That's
get
my
out
big
of the way.
spoiler. No boobs.
Yeah, no boobs.
What am I supposed to do with this? Can't jack off to this movie. There's always a kid watching me. Yeah, I guess what we could talk about, since this movie is non-linear, we can linearize it. Let's talk about the first thing that happens canonically in this universe.
Peter. He's back.
Peter, yeah, the guy you see kill himself at the beginning of the movie. You're gonna watch him in many scenes that don't interact with any of the characters you know or care about, because he died. So you're only watching him in the past. But yeah, no, I thought it was kind of an interesting story once you finally got to know what happened. That Peter is like an English teacher for this student, has a crush on him, and she's obsessed. And then her abusive boyfriend, husband, I guess, whatever, baby daddy, finds this journal where she's been like describing her love. Peter, writes Peter a million times, covered in hearts, and she's just getting more. She's crazy. She'd be crazy about it, and he didn't like that, so I guess he fucking beats her to death or something. Puts her in that closet. Is that what happened? You're gonna have to help me with that big guy. And then he goes and he drowns the kid in the bathtub.
Yeah.
And that's how they die. Yeah. And then he hangs himself in that room. Yeah.
Yeah, I whenever they revealed that mystery, I was like, okay, that's a pretty good motivation on why someone would, like, why these spirits are here, essentially. There.
Yeah, they got murder-suied.
Yeah, because, like, the fact of, like, the Onryo, as I was refreshing myself before we recorded this section and everything, basically their whole point is that in life they died by a wrongdoing, essentially, and they felt like they never got to achieve what they wanted and everything, and so then they just basically come back until eventually, like, they feel like they achieve vengeance and basically just blindly, violently attack anybody and everything there, essentially. But I did like it. I did like the mystery about who it was, because essentially, like, all you see is, like, a photo with, like, the face cut out there, essentially, and you're like, okay, who's this person? And again, you don't see her, because again, she has, like, the hair in the face, essentially, and you have no idea what she looks like. And as you go on with the film or whatever, again, because of the amazing internet, it shows that PETA, you know, was killed by a suicide, which I was going to mention. I feel like it wasn't suicide, because the one thing that threw me off the first time I watched it is, like, he slouched over or something like that, and then just slips over. So I'm guessing that it was the Grudge basically grabbing and pulling him over the edge.
Yeah, I figured it was, so we kind of see, well, once it's revealed that the kid was drowned in the tub or whatever, and the detective dies the same way, I figured it was kind of like that was the lip of the tub or whatever, but, like, he pushed him over, maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing. You know, now that I mention it, the detective, is it the husband that kills him, like, drowns him? I think it's
the husband, yeah, because, like, he sees the boy drowning, and he goes to save him, and then he kind of takes the place of the boy as the husband spirit, I guess, drowns him, which is really the only time we see him as the spirit, I think.
Yeah, which is weird.
But it's definitely him, because he's wearing, like, a plaid shirt, and, like, there's, like, yeah, it's, like, definitely a man behind him drowning him.
Which is weird. That's the only time he shows up besides the flashback, essentially.
Yeah, you see him in, like, the photos and stuff, but, like, yeah, that's the only time you really see him.
But I do like whenever the mystery is adding up, where Sarah Michelle Gellar is essentially going over to her Peter's like girlfriend, wife's place, I guess, and she managed to look through the photo, and I don't know, it's creepy, comedic sort of thing that all the photos she starts to notice a pattern where basically the woman, Kayako, is staring at the camera at all different angles and everything.
Yeah.
I love it and think it's silly at the same time.
God, I don't even... That's one of those things that I couldn't quite tell if it was like, this is supernatural, or if it was just because she was stalking him.
I thought it was supernatural as well. Maybe like, you know, it's like one of those things where like she would move in the photo, which I'm glad it's not. I think it's just better that she coincidentally was in every shot staring.
Well, I think it was supernatural. Like she became in those shots later because she's so obsessed with Peter or whatever. Like she appeared in the photo for supernatural needs. And I think maybe that's what the movie was hinting at, because after she looks at that, the next scene is that flashback with Peter, and he's holding up a picture of him and his wife or whatever, but she's not in the background of that picture yet because the horrible thing hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
And that's the one where he gets another love letter, and he's like, this girl, I guess I gotta go to her house. I thought he was gonna be having an affair or something, but
I thought so too, but I think honestly this is a lot better and a lot creepier. Just some dude that a student was obsessing over, and it's pretty much out of his control essentially whenever her like abusive husband basically kills her and the child because she is crushing after her professor and everything. And he's just, because again, like he's seeing these letters, he's like, I need to go talk to them about this. Like it's getting out of control essentially. And then he gets there, and lo and behold, he finds that, you know, everyone there is dead essentially.
Yeah, well he doesn't realize that at first because he sees the kid and he thinks the kid is alive, but the kid's already dead at that point. And he's talking to him or whatever, and then he goes and he sees the part I'm struggling to put together again, memory. I guess so the husband cut out all the pictures of her head, I guess, and then pinned them to that door with the little pins through her eye every time, and that's why she only looks with one eye or whatever.
I didn't even think about that because I saw like both eyes a couple of times.
Yeah, well, I guess she, like in the TV, but most of the time she has like her hair.
Yes.
She can only see one eye or whatever. But I don't know.
I don't know. I think it was just one of those like artistic things, but it doesn't make sense.
There might be some Japanese shit there too, because I know, like, there's a saying about grandparents, and this is me, you know, this is some gaijin ass shit trying to remember some shit I remember. This could be totally not a thing, but I do remember specifically. There's like some weird saying about like a grandmother can keep their children in their eye or whatever. It's like a weird, I don't know that it translates perfectly, but it's like they keep their children or their loved ones, they love them so much that they can live in their eye or whatever. So I don't know if it has anything to do with that or not, or if I'm just totally off base. But
no, you're good.
It might be some like a cheeky allusion to a saying. But
yeah, the only thing I could think of is that he was just pissed and basically wants her dead, and so I guess that's his thing. Is just cutting her out of all the photos because she's the one that's being quote unquote unfaithful to them essentially by crushing the professor. I'm sure again it was just a visual thing, I feel like, just to drag them to the closet, because as it's shown that whenever, because again, mind you, we're experiencing this Peter flashback whenever he arrives at the house through Sarah Michelle Gellar's eyes, because she's going to the house because her boyfriend Doug is going to the house because he's like, hey, you haven't been at home, I'm going to swing by the house to see if you're there, I guess.
Yeah, because she found all of her research that she's been obsessing over with his house, and he's like, maybe you're here.
Yeah, and he goes there or whatever, and whenever she's there, she then is suddenly flashed to the past and is there exactly the same time Peter is, essentially. And I do like that, you know, you finally go to the back room, like that's the last place. And again, I do like the structure of the story, that it's just like they go room by room essentially as the story progresses, and I think it's well done. But whenever he gets to the closet where all the pinned head pictures of the head essentially are at, you see like basically a bloodied body fall from the attic space there, stuffed in a bag, and they don't really go into detail about how the husband kills her, because again, PG-13, they're definitely trying to keep it the most PG-13 film you possibly can, not even like pressing for an R. And you just see her dead, which I do think it is sort of like a good reveal essentially for Peter. And then as he tries to escape the house, I'm assuming that's whenever he's already been cursed there, because there was definitely, they try to do some scares that just don't translate very well in this film, and there's definitely a lot of moments you could, but one of them is whenever Peter's at the house and the boy is sitting on the couch, that you hear this cat, and then the boy is in the background, opens his mouth, and cat noises are coming out, mixed with the
he's
sort of
making
thing.
that noise, I think, and the cat's just freaking out, because I think the cat just freaks out at evil spirits.
Oh, I thought he was making that cat noise, and I was like, what is this?
I think the cat just senses evil, because animals sense evil or whatever, and it's
I like that. No, that was the crazy thing too. Like, this douchey husband essentially, like, not only kills a woman, but kills the child and the cat. Yeah, like drowns both of them essentially. And oh my gosh, it is funny just seeing how it happened. But I was also thrown off by the husband whenever, like, Peter goes into a room and sees that now there's like the dead body of the husband hanging there, and there's like that banging noise against, and I'm
thumping.
And from what it looks like he was just resting against the wall. Again, they don't show the hang body because we can't do that. We can't threaten the PG-13 limit. And so you just assume it's hung, and then you see Peter run out of the house before, boom, Sarah Michelle Gellar is brought back to the present, as it were.
Did anybody die from, like, hanging or something? Because a lot of at least two of the deaths line up with the deaths of the people that were in the house, right? Yoko in the beginning gets pulled into the closet or whatever and dies.
Yes, which, that was also goofy, because, again, I know you make, like, the joke of, like, why are these people just diving headfirst into danger?
Yeah, all these people, whenever they discover something that's like, oh, well, this seems dangerous, they don't just like, I'm gonna go call the police. Like, there's never enough evidence for them to just be like, this is the point where I call the police. It's like, well, let me just see what's in this attic where there's blood and shit.
Yeah, but I guess, to be fair with, like, Yoko's point, I guess she's like, oh, is there like an animal in the attic there, like rattling around, and she's on the phone with a friend, and you see her crawl up to the attic space, and then where she's basically freaked out essentially because she finds something up there, but then it's cut short there.
Well, no, that's what she has, the lighter, and she turns
lighter,
and then you kind of get like the camera turns and the face is right there, and then it cuts, so you don't see all the violence.
And it was the goofy thing where she's kicking her leg, screaming, but then it's pulled up. But it just, again, I wanted to be scared. Well, I don't know. I've ended up mostly laughing at it, even though it probably should have been scary there. Just because, like, that, legs kicking, getting pulled in. It just visually was just more so funny than anything. But yeah, that's basically the next death to happen afterwards, essentially. And then it ends up being, technically, I think actually there was other deaths before that one, even, because they mentioned that the other people were gone for a day. That's a weird thing. It doesn't specify who dies when, because we get to Matthew and his wife, who are the next victims.
They do say that was 3 years ago or whatever. The detective, whenever he's going through after the mom or the grandma or whatever dies in there, and Sarah Michelle Gellar's there, whenever the detective gets on scene and he's doing all his he's like, yeah, like, eventually they pry out of him. He's like, this is the same house that 3 years ago we invested a murder-suicide, and that was when the guy killed the boy and the girl originally, the abusive husband, and then hung himself. And then he says several of his detectives have died since being in that house or whatever.
Yeah, trying to investigate that one specific murder.
Right.
Yeah.
And then now we are 3 years past that murder, I guess, and they sold the house. And then I think the mom and when did they die?
Yeah, it's like so weird and bizarre. And I also have to give this spoiler away. That real estate agent, smartest, but
piece of shit.
Yes, piece of shit, essentially.
That real estate agent is the only person that could have saved all of them.
Yeah, because
he's like putting the house on the market, and the bathtub scene.
Yeah, where he's like, in the in the bathroom, he's like, oh, look, a clogged up sink here, essentially. Here, let me pull out the chain. Oh, the chain's disconnected. Here, let me just remove it. Oh, God, I'm being grabbed and everything. He pulls back, and Matthew's like, we'll take it!
And he's not just like, oh, you might want to hold on. This freaky ass shit just happened.
And he's just like,
great.
yeah,
Sold.
okay, cool, yeah.
Never gonna talk to you again.
But yeah, because basically the wife is essentially the one who technically dies first, because basically she's the one that investigates the footprints and ends up going upstairs, and essentially the door closes right behind her, and then Matthew gets home. He's like, honey, I'm home, jumping in, and seeing that it's a mess or whatever, he's like, huh, where is she? And then goes up to the room, and basically she's on the bed doing like which I'm guessing that's like her being scared to death. I'm guessing if she can't breathe, essentially.
And that's essentially, I think, what was happening to the mother too, is I thought she was just like had dementia, but she was just like terrified of the shit she saw. Yeah, and so then there's like, really, this whole scene is just one of the goofiest scenes, because basically Matthew walks in, seeing his wife sort of like not be okay. He's just like, honey, is something the matter? What's going on? As opposed to being like, oh my god, I need to call the hospital. He's just like, huh, what is this? Doing that sort of thing, and then only realizes something's wrong whenever a lot of supernatural stuff starts popping up. And then he looks over, and that kid is on the other side of the bed or whatever, and he's like staring at him with little eyes, and he's like, who are you? Yeah, and so then while he's freaking out going, oh, oh, whoa, whoa, doing that, his wife's dying on the bed until basically she draws her last breath and falls back dead, and there's a whole bunch of skittering around the room and he's
stuff.
Holding up the lamp like,
yeah, he's just the biggest dopiest guy, and it just makes it laughable.
Just run.
Like, yeah, it's just
start running.
Yeah, and then he like turns around, and the boy is like leaning over him, and he's like, ah. And so then that ends up being the next death. But then they find them in the attic. Yeah, they find that couple in the attic, like holding each other in the corner or whatever. Yes, like the bodies were like stashed up there, because that's whenever the police force is basically going in and everything, because I guess Sarah Michelle Gellar called for an emergency or something like that, and then like the mom basically dies because, obviously the Onryo, but medical records are being like, oh, it was natural causes. Right, yeah. So like the woman's all freaked out, and then she finds this kid, and that's when she calls the agency. And right, yeah, because she finds Ted come over. Yes, yeah, oh my god, I forgot about the Ted thing, be like, hey there, how's it going? You're awfully quiet. Oh no.
Oh, yes.
And then he sees Sarah. Yes, that's why the police was called. Yeah. Yes, gotta get along with this crazy ride and everything. Which I do love that they have like this trope of not being able to find the phone at the beginning, because they try to make a couple of phone calls. And one of the phone calls they receive is from the daughter of the mother that lives there. Just calling in, which honestly was kind of weird, because there ends up being a transition later that focuses on her story from that time she made the phone call. So it's like, why is she also in Japan? Like the whole family moved here? I know, right? It was a whole family affair, I suppose, which I guess that was her that was also there whenever they toured the house. Yeah. I guess. But I don't know. They do, and meanwhile, they do have like fun teasers for the characters. There's even like, obviously, like, whenever Sarah Michelle Gellar goes upstairs or whatever, sees like one of the closets is taped shut there, and then she hears a cat in it, she's like, oh my god, there's something inside there. And then that's whenever she sees the cat and the boy, and then she's like, oh my god, what are you doing here? And I like that with the boy and everything in the film, essentially, like he's just kind of there. I'm just stealing your analogies, dude, but anglerfish with like the light, he's just basically the thing that happens before the real monster arrives. He just kills people sometimes, like he did that to the true Matthew. Yeah, but he deserved it. Absolute piece of garbage. Moron buffoon, essentially. Big dummy. Yes, and big dumb. But whenever they drag that body out, there's not a death for a while, I don't believe. I believe one of the freaky things they mention is like whenever the detectives are discovering the scene and they go up to the attic and then they find basically Matthew and his wife's body there, they see like what I couldn't even tell was a jawbone. It looked more like a fruit because again they cut away quickly like, oh, we can't show this, otherwise we have to make it R. And it does lead to that creepy scene later on. This was honestly probably the most unnerving scene, which was basically focusing on Ted Raimi. Bear with me, folks. I know I can't open a statement of like, yeah, this was really creepy. Ted Raimi was there. But he's walking down the stairs and then he sees like a figure stifling forward rigidly and everything. And I couldn't even tell who it was at first, but then like once the lighting got better, I'm like, oh my god, that's Yoko. And you just see the back of her there, and again he like slips and he's like, huh, blood. He's like, Yoko, you doing okay? You know, and then she does like the bone popping sort of thing and turn around, and I was even surprised they actually showed that she was missing her bottom jaw. But again, it was like the least gruesome way you could show somebody losing a jaw, like Courage the Cowardly Dog, Scooby-Doo Zombie Hour, essentially losing jaw with like the tongue hanging out. But, you know, the way that it moved or whatever, it definitely was unnerving there. So I give major credit for that, being like, okay, that was actually a bit spoopy. Look at you go. The Grudge. So that was fun, but I do love that it's like, oh yeah, they found Yoko, she's dead. You know, just gotta brush along past that.
Just found her.
But basically whenever Sarah Michelle Gellar is doing investigating, that's whenever like the detective is also doing investigating as well. Just trying to figure things out. I will say the whole sister thing just felt like an extension of like, oh, we need to have more kills in the film.
That's the vibe I got.
And just to kind of really truly display its power, which is telephone pranking.
It's that it follows you everywhere. It's to prove the line that the captain says true or whatever, where he's like, if you enter this place, it'll like find you or whatever. Until its wrath is finished.
The thing I want to know is why in the world it's able to pretend to be other people unless it's like, you know, because again, it was supposed to look like Matthew, like on the phone or whatever.
It called and did Matthew's voice.
So I don't know if they can like take forms of other spirits, maybe, or other people. I don't know, because it's like a thing, like it's set up where you hear the phone call, you're like, oh man, it's gonna be, you know, the Onryo, yes, doing that, and it's just like, hey there, can you buzz me in the building? And she's like, oh yeah, sure. And then whenever she does, the doorbell immediately rings, and it's just like, and I was like, man, Matthew's been doing his steps.
And it's I do kind of applaud the movie for she looks out the keyhole and it is Matthew out there, because I was expecting it to be like nobody, and then she opens it and be like, who's out there?
Yeah, but then she like goes out there and then she's like, hey Matthew, what's going on? Then she hears, you know, essentially, and then throws the phone. The battery still falls out and it's still making that noise. And she has like just a whole goofy Scooby-Doo style chase scene from her workplace to the apartment, as we see, because even whenever she's leaving her work there, you know, she hears like steps down the hallway, which I can relate to. There's times where I felt like I've heard something in a big abandoned building. It's creepy as all get out. But then I do love that whenever she runs to the stairwell or whatever, that's whenever the lights are suddenly going down above, and then down below you see something skittering up the stairs.
Yeah, it's like, well, choose your path.
And then she's like, neither. You know, it just runs back out the door, and as she tries to close it, the charm is grabbed with a lucky rabbit's foot and pulled. And then whenever she has to run to the security guard, again, he puts on his comedically oversized hat, and he's checking things out. So now
that we're rehashing the part about the lucky rabbit's foot, I actually do really like that. Not only from a movie perspective where you get to kind of see the face for just a second and then fade away, but also like that, we're dealing with spirits and luck and stuff, so it does make sense that like those rules come into play. Like, all right, like your good luck charm saved you this time or whatever, because we're dealing with spirit forces and shit. So that shit works.
I like that. I didn't even think about that. I like it.
Once the rabbit foot's gone, and then she finds it again later.
It's at the worst time.
It's no longer a good thing.
Yes, no, I did like that. I don't know. Am I going to have a moment where I rate the Grudge higher? I don't know. That's a good question. I'm thinking I'm thinking 5 to 6 range. 4.5, same. You always have me second guessing. In retrospect, I'm like, hindsight, I'm like, yeah, that was good. That was good. I like that. Because she did have I think it's a security guard also got scared, right? Because he ran away like a Scooby-Doo character as well.
Well, no, he like goes in he just no, because the security guard that she watches through the footage, and he goes in there and the door closes. And then he opens it back up and walks out, and it seems like nothing happened. And then it gets...
That's what it was.
Then it gets dark under the door, and you see the figure of the girl.
Yeah, it's approaching the camera there, and that's whenever she freaks out. She's like, forget this, and starts running. Because
he has no beef... The spirits have no beef with the security guard, because they haven't been in the house or whatever. But
yeah, and so I'm guessing it's like... And again, it's just trying to understand the rules and the extent of its powers.
It's just whoever steps foot in that house is going to die, no matter what. Like, period, is the point of that film. But...
That is true,
and
yeah.
And like nobody else is going to receive that wrath or even see those people, but everybody that's been in that house dies.
Yeah, because basically they're just hunting them down no matter what.
Right.
So, yeah, that's fair. That's fair that he just doesn't see anything at all whatsoever. But they do try to do some scary stuff, but like I said, it ends up being comedic, whether it's just like the on the phone after doing the perfect impersonation of Matthew or whatever, and even visually tricking her. I'm surprised they did implement more stuff like that.
Yeah,
really. So that's kind of the question of like,
what the powers are.
Yes, exactly.
I think it's just I honestly think they manipulate time because that place is stuck in time or whatever. So like that's kind of what's signaled whenever you know that the Grudge is coming or whatever. When you know the spirit's coming is whenever they're playing those chimes first of all. Which must have been what was playing in the house at the time or whatever. And then whenever it starts playing in reverse, that's when you know that, like, timey-wimey shit is happening.
Oh, yes, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, like, that's the vibe I got is, like, they have time-altering powers to some extent, but mostly just, but in relation to horrific things that happen at the house. So they could probably impersonate Matthew because... They were saying, I can't remember exactly what the line was, but it was some shit that he probably said while he was in the house or whatever.
Yeah, probably so there. Sorry, I was totally getting sidetracked thinking about that elevator scene whenever she's laying back and the boy's just outside the window.
For some reason.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if he was naked or had white shorts there just so they could get away, again, PG-13.
I don't think they showed Kid Dong, but yeah, he was definitely mostly unclothed.
Yeah, and then there's like a couple of scenes where he just take a step closer to the window, and of course she doesn't notice.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if it makes it creepy or funny. Again, I remember laughing at it. So
I thought it was funny. It was just goofy that when there's stuff like that that's supposed to be scary that the characters don't notice. It's just like whatever. Because she like willfully didn't notice it because she's just had her eyes closed in the elevator.
I think it's like a thing where like there's ideas that are like really scary, but then the way they execute it is the most funny way possible. Especially whenever it comes to especially when it comes to demise of the sister, because whenever she starts freaking out, her instinct is to run under the bed and hide under the covers.
Yeah, like, bro, you don't want to, like, run where people are. Like...
Yeah, it was so funny. So funny. And then, of course, whenever she's in bed, she finds her lucky rabbit's foot, and then you see, like, a little, like, mound moving in the bed, and then whenever she lifts the sheets, behold, Onryo, and then she gets dragged, which... all the ideas, like if you described it to me, would be terrifying. Seeing it was super funny.
Yeah, well, that part was funny, just because I was reacting to how stupid she was for running into bed.
Yeah, that was so... And I understand, they're like, how do we get her to the bed? Oh, she runs to the bed terrified.
Right, but that's exactly what this whole my beef with this movie is that every... action is because the plot demands it, not because anything like makes sense.
Yes, and so then that ends up being the next death, and I do love whenever the detective is investigating the security cape, again, he sees it because he's been inside the house, so it's haunting him, and so that's why he's able to see it, and again, like, basically starts making noise in the camera, staring at it, and then he's like, I'm burning that house down.
Yeah.
Like, he just had enough or whatever. Because even before because Sarah Michelle Gellar, like, has been, like, interviewed by him, essentially, whenever he's trying to investigate. He's like, okay, not really going to talk about anything. And then whenever she approaches him because she's researching and trying to find out stuff, I feel like, again, like, they did an attempt of exposition, but I felt like it was not very strong exposition. It's just sort of like, a murder's happened in that house. You know, they have a saying about how, like, people that are wrong, they're spirits. You can go home now.
Yeah, he's like, anybody that's been in that house is gonna die.
Yeah. So then once he's kind of realized he's had enough and tries to burn the house down again, he gets distracted because he hears, like, a kid drowning, essentially.
Yeah, which is that's the part that pissed me off.
Yes,
like,
it was...
I understand when random guy that doesn't know this house is haunted hears just somebody in trouble and runs to help them or whatever and then gets fucked for it. But, like, this guy knows exactly what happened in this house. He knows exactly what's happening in this house, and he still decides to go try to save the child that's drowning, even though he knows that a child was drowned here and that its spirit is haunting the place and killing people.
Yeah, it was a very much a weak death and really stupid and just kind of shoehorned in, like, oh, we can only have the final girl, essentially.
Like, and if you're gonna do obvious arson anyways as a police captain, why did you even go inside the house? Why didn't you just light it up from the outside?
It's silly. It's silly, to say the least. Speaking of silly, I do love that the boyfriend is running there and that Sarah Michelle Gellar's having to haul it, just running, you know, Terminator style. Again, rocking that sweet outfit.
Yeah, always.
There. And then whenever she gets there, you know, she hears Doug's voice speaking upstairs because he's trying to, like, call her, I guess, from the house there. And so she hears, goes upstairs, and then wibbly wobbly timey wimey goes back in time to Peter's perspective and sees it. And I guess Peter can sense that Sarah Michelle Gellar's there because he kind of, like, winces back a couple of times.
Yeah, and he's like looks in her direction a lot, but then starts to look away, and you
Yeah,
can tell
so
he can't see her. But yeah, that time when they both look at try to grab the photo, and their, like, hands overlap or whatever. And he's like,
yeah, and so I'm guessing it is sort of like you said, like, this house is kind of trapped in time, essentially, there, that time screwy there. And then they get to, like, the final fight, the big reveal of, like, the main Onryo and stuff, and I just feel like, again, at this point, I just can't take it seriously because it's so goofy, because not only, again, you know, after seeing the bag or whatever, but they had the same shot where, like, earlier whenever the cat was running upstairs, you see a pair of white hands grab it and pull it back, and it's, like, supposed to be creepy, but it almost looked, like, so polite, like, oh, sorry about that.
right.
What's he doing out? And so then seeing her walk down the stairs, again, she is doing, like, almost that classic Evil Dead sort of contorting and everything, going down the stairs, which it should be scary, but I don't know if it was just the lighting or something like that. There was just something about it. And again, it also could have been just the humor of it that kind of took away the horror. Like, I felt like I should have been horrified, especially seeing her. Because I do love the white makeup and, like, the black eyeliner there and the dark hair and everything. Everything looks, like, on point. It's like, yep, that's the Grudge. That's good. I like it. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they did in Ju-On there. Like, it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
But it just never ended up being scary. But then we just get, like, this weird moment of, like, you know, basically she finds that, you know, Doug is dead, essentially, because he is losing his breath as well. And then she tries to set the house on fire and everything.
Right.
And I guess she had just planned on going up in flames. But then I guess something immediately must have stopped it because that should have just combusted.
Right.
Just being close together. But she looked like she just got a little battered or bruised. Not, I exploded 2 gas canisters. But even then, they're like, oh, we prevented that house fire going on.
Yeah, she didn't even look burned. She just looked beat up.
Yeah, and then I guess, like, Doug's body was burned or whatever because they don't even show it underneath the tarp except his hand, which is like a little scar and burned a little bit. Nowhere near as bad as what it should have been for how it was. But, you know, like I said, I felt like it was, like, fine or whatever the way it ended, but I knew it was going to have the ending where like the Grudge is still alive, which I think I predicted it even at the beginning of the film. Like this thing is not going to get defeated. I feel like it's just, especially to fit in, I mean, with any horror trope period, but especially mid 2000s. And, you know, I think the reveal is still fine, but it was funny because there was a lot of moments where there was a nurse with like very thick dark hair, and I'm like, oh, it's her.
Right. I was like, she's going to turn around and be her, because then she enters that room with the same dark hair woman. You don't see her face at that time. And I was like, oh, that
honestly would have been a better reveal than what it was. I felt like it was a fine reveal still, like whenever they do decide to give her time with Doug or whatever. But I did predict, because I made this comment to you on the couch. I was like, she's going to be underneath that tarp, isn't she? She's like, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you know, you see like the hair dripping down in the white hand, but then whenever she closes her eyes and opens back up, it's Doug's hand there. But then she senses like her right behind her, which I do like. I just feel like the nurse might have been a better reveal maybe there, like, you know, like the doctors ignore the nurse because it's not there or whatever, but I don't know, it could have also been like a Joker moment dressing up as the nurse, who knows. Something like that.
I think because you see the nurse a couple times, like you see her in the beginning, then you see her when she enters the room, and I really just would have liked, because it's obvious she gets left alone there when she's experiencing this shit with the body. Yeah, I would have liked if there was... I mean, I thought there was going to be at least a jump scare with the nurse. Not necessarily she sees the nurse again, but then, like, the nurse is replaced by the girl, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Or whatever. Like, it just turns around and it's her, you know? I don't know. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, either way, I felt like the reveal was fine hiding behind, because mostly just because of the sensation of how creepy it is to have someone like be that close to you or whatever. Yeah. Like, I could get behind that, and so I felt like the ending was fine. Definitely have had worse endings on this podcast where they try to do something similar.
Yeah, I just thought it was a little corny. It was just like, she dies anyways. I don't know. Yeah. I would have almost liked it better if there was that intimidating black hair presence behind her, and she turns around scared, and it's the nurse, and she's like, it's time to go or whatever, and then she like is walking into the hospital and like sees the reflection of the girl again or whatever, and know that she's still haunted. You know what I mean? Because then it would leave it a little open. It's not just like Sarah Michelle Gellar dies, but it's like she's still cursed to die. You know what I mean? And then roll the credits. But yeah, I feel like that's a little more pliable, but even that ending I don't love. I just think I would have liked that a little bit more.
I think so. Either way, I still feel like the ending's very mid horror 2000s sort of thing. So I feel like it works fine for the film, but you are right. I think it definitely would have been better. So I don't know. It does make me curious about how the first original Ju-on film is and everything. So again, who knows? Maybe Takashi is brilliant. He's like, this is how I get people to appreciate my first...
Watch the movie I made perfectly the first time.
Yes. Whew. Well, we definitely had a lot to say about that film that I was not prepared for right before recording. Anything else you want to add to this review or anything else about The Grudge, Aaron?
No, sir.
Okay, no, I think we got it pretty locked, sealed, tied up. Thank you, Sarah Michelle Gellar, for being Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Thank you, Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yep, absolutely.
For having 3 names.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna name my future cat Geller.
Well, let's name this future movie we're gonna watch.
Yeah. Oh, transition. Yeah. So we're gonna be watching a sequel.
Okay.
It's a franchise that we have visited 3 times already.
3 times? Okay.
Yep. Great. And, you know, it's like a good sort of summer film. Getting out in nature. Sure. The woods. Maybe visit a lake.
A lake. Yeah.
Yes.
Camp Crystal Lake.
Yes, you betcha.
Great.
Yep. So, you know what it is. Mm-hmm. It's Friday the 13th. The final chapter.
I don't think it's the final one.
Why would you spoil that?
Yeah. I'm going to go on a limb and say that they made at least 5 more.
Yes. Anyways, thank you all so much for listening to this episode, and we will see you all again next time when we're Poppin the Scary with Friday the 13th, the final chapter. For real, though. It is. Believe us. Please. It's, yes, absolutely. Ignore other Friday the 13th you may have heard. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Castbox, or iTunes platforms to stay up to date when new episodes drop. To see what Aaron and I are up to, check out our respective Twitter accounts. For me, it is @ColeKirkVA, and for Aaron, it is @AnimalGameDev. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. We'll speak to you all again next time when we're poppin' the scary.